we want to provide a platform where people can train their generic AI models with more data and make it specialized with basically more knowledge so that these models can be better in a particular use case. So the idea is to enable a general brain to become much more specialized, to be trained on more information.
Is there enough meat on the bone for contributors to be fairly contributed to the data set?
It'll come down to like how big AI adoption is. DeepSeek was good because they basically trained on synthetic data from other models. They needed data. They just took it from another model.
What's your grandest ambition for OpenLedger?
So I think
Today's podcast is brought to you by EtherFi Cash, your gateway to spending your crypto. Cash is a truly crypto-native credit card. Spend with a crypto-integrated credit card and stablecoin account, all with crypto, all hassle-free. Earn 3% cash back with perks, event tickets, and additional rewards for every purchase on your Ether.fi Cash credit card.
Use the referral link for $50 cash back on your first $1,000 spent.
Excellent. Welcome to the Decipher podcast. Today we're here with Ram, core contributor to OpenLedger. Ram, I always like to start off with a hot take. I think the industry has often thought that most of AI plus crypto is largely vapor. Do you think this is true? And in this case of OpenLedger, why is it not true?
I was thinking it's untrue about a year back, but during the AI agent season that was happening, it is showing up to be very true, right? Most of the projects out there were vaporware. It's very unfortunate. I think it's because of the market, how it behaves. Like people like to speculate. There's always a token associated with something which is quick and like fun. So I think every cycle we've seen this, right from the ICO times to DeFi summer. You've seen this happen, right? Something new narrative comes in. There's a new technology. People want to ape that. They want to create certain speculations around that, and then it dies down. We expected all of this to happen, right? Everyone who has been in the industry knew that the AI agent season would not last more than like 3 months, and that's what really happened. So all the fluff has kind of like gone down a bit, so that's good. People who are like building very hardcore infrastructure and which has some usability and some utility are staying back, and they're going to last long as well. So every industry goes through this. Like even like in traditional AI industry, when ChatGPT launched, there were 100 other ChatGPT wrappers that was launched, right? And most of them were vaporware. There's nothing there inside. All of them are nowhere to be seen today. And so this is bound to happen in any growing tech. It's fine. It just makes the ecosystem much more busy, but it's fine. I think this is where people try to figure out what's bad and what's like really good.
Yeah, I think it happens when there's a lot of capital chasing a narrative, but there's not a lot of investable assets in that narrative.
Yeah.
And there kind of is a bit of froth that is created, and people just kind of launch assets on the narrative itself.
Yeah.
I think one cool aspect of crypto is the fact that it is investable by literally anyone in the world, pretty much. And I think so much of current AI development is gated by private rounds, right? We have OpenAI at a $500 billion valuation, maybe, and it's purely owned by private investors. Is that important to you and your mission to have open access to not only the products but the asset itself?
Well, I think so. There are two ways to see this, right? Investment as an opportunity for people to be part of another network, and then a reward as an opportunity, or more like an earning mechanism, right? How can we use crypto to create like a gig economy? So I think these are two ways that people have always looked at crypto. Investment is majorly on trading side. People try to trade tokens which are like around a particular narrative, or something which is massive, and usually as investors, as retail investors, we do not get an opportunity to invest into large ecosystems, right? So they see crypto as an alternative version of doing that. There could be very equivalent large ecosystems out there, which are doing as good as the traditional AI or a traditional company out there, finance company. It could be a DeFi version of that, which people would love to invest in, and people go ahead and do that. So that's one side, right? On the other side, it's the gig economy that is being developed using crypto. That's something that we are very bullish on, which is going to enable much more larger innovations and development to happen in AI space. I think that's a value add that Web3 space can bring into AI. If you take a look at decentralized compute, right, I think it's amazing. We could have brought like large and largest of people to build on like something which is new, something which is exciting. But it's good that we started with something simple but very important, which is solving the compute problem, right? Most of the centralized AI compute companies, they would charge you more than $7 to $10 an hour to like rent a GPU and then like play around with that, right? But for a decentralized compute company, would charge you less than $1. And the reason why is because there is abundance of resource that is available. You have people across the globe contributing these compute resources. What if we can bring that concept to everywhere, right? What if we can bring that concept to other important components of AI, which is like data, right? If anyone wants to build an AI model or make an existing agent or an app to be much more efficient, you need like very good data sets to be contributed, either as a RAG or as a model itself, right? You need to provide data to a model to fine tune it. We wanted to democratize that. We wanted to make that data to be available and at a much more larger scale and increase the access to that resource. And that's the core thesis of OpenLedger. I think that's one of the most important aspect of why we are a Web3 company. We could have done this as a traditional AI company, but one of the reasons why we are a Web3 company is to make sure that anyone across the globe can contribute data sets to us, which can be consumed by model developers or anyone who's building like a RAG. And as they build these models or any other intelligence solutions for AI, they could reward the data contributors for the revenue from the revenue that they make, right? So building that ecosystem where people share together and build something and then they get paid as part of the process is what would make innovations happen, right? This is what would be a thriving ecosystem. We've seen Hugging Face try to do this in the traditional way, but it did not really do well, right? Because most of Hugging Face is great. There's good, models and stuff, but 90% of them are useless, right? Only about maybe 10% is useful because, you're not monetizing the overall process. You're not benefiting anyone who's part of the process, all the stakeholders, right? If you want very high quality content to be contributed, if you want very high quality data to be contributed to build an AI model, you need to figure out ways to monetize it. You need to figure out a way for you to be fair to them, for you to be, showing what is actually happening with their data, showing that you still own your data, but you're going to get paid for it, right? That's very important. With traditional spaces, you can't do that. And I think that's why crypto can add value to AI, especially in the resource contribution side. We just did an experiment, right? We ran a testnet campaign for language-based data sets where people come forward and we would love to have them contribute language data sets, right? And we got close to about more than 100,000 users contributing data sets around Spanish language for us. And same for Hugging Face, took more than like 6 months for them, and they had like maybe around like 5,000 users contributing data sets for them, and they could not complete that data set, right? That the language data set was not completely done. The labeling was not completely done. We could do that is because we use crypto as a rewarding mechanism to reward people in a much more seamless way than any other platform out there like Hugging Face. And also we had a larger reach because of crypto. And we not only concentrated on US as a jurisdiction or one particular country as a jurisdiction, we concentrated on the entire globe. Where and all people speak Spanish, all of them could have come forward and contributed, and they did. So crypto enables that for you, right? It makes rewarding much more easier, which is important in our case. And I believe that's one of the reasons why it crypto democratizes the way people can access any resource, and it can be either investing or it could be either getting paid for a work. and we want to go big on both sides, right? One,
Hmm.
and as a protocol, we would love to see how we can enable people to get rewarded, and after a point of time, we will also love to see how we can enable models to be tokenized so people can start investing on them as well. But again, that's more later stage. But now we want to concentrate on rewarding people.
Right. So we have this access to investment problem. You guys are bullish on that use case, but the bigger use case for OpenLedger is around this incentive alignment problem. And you believe that crypto provides the best network, the best kind of global network to access those incentives, and get people to provide data kind of in a
Yeah,
distributed way.
yeah.
Phenomenal. You touched on it a bit here, but I do want to back up just a touch. Explain to me, like I'm five, what is OpenLedger?
That's a tough one, but I'll try to do that because what we do, even though I like it, is a bit complex. But I will, but I'll try. I'm always trying to make it simple. In every other podcast, I try to talk about OpenLedger, right? But so today, in a simple way, right? Think of AI to be if you humanize AI, right? It's AI is like a human. You can converse with AI, right? And let's think about ChatGPT as like another human that we converse to, and its brain is basically an AI model, right? OpenAI is its model where it asks questions and you're asking questions to ChatGPT, it runs it through the model and then gives you an answer. And all of us, we've all studied, like we've all done undergrad, right? When we do an undergrad or we, go to school, we have very general knowledge, right? We have a general knowledge of the world. That's how most of the AI models are. Think of AI models to have a very generic knowledge of the world because they're trained on internet data. But for us to be specialized in the sector that we work with, I would love to get specialized in engineering, and that's what I'm trying to do over the last 10 years. I've studied engineering, and then I work in engineering, and I try to learn more and more. There are people who would love to specialize in finance. They would have studied finance. There's people who would love to specialize in, let's say, space, aerospace, and stuff. They were studied aeronautical engineering. So people always specialize in a particular subject to gain more knowledge. And we would, as humans, go to our specialist, the specialist that we would want to seek and get guidance from, so that we know that they are much better in that subject than a generic person. We always go for them, right? So models can be that. Models can become specialized. Models can be much more than what the current AI models are. That is what we would love to do, right? We want to provide a platform where people can train their models, their generic AI models, with more data and make it specialized with basically more knowledge, so that these models can be better in a particular use case like trading, healthcare, math, or it could be a programming language like Solidity, or it could be the languages that they speak like Spanish, or very niche languages and stuff. So the idea is to enable a general brain to become much more specialized, to be trained on more information. As simple as that.
And how does OpenLedger facilitate those data sets?
What we enable is a platform, an infrastructure on which model developers can go forward and collect data sets on top of us. For any model to be specialized, you need to provide data set. Data is the knowledge that you provide to that model, right? And we provide an infrastructure on which you can collect data. All the model developers, they can pull up a contract on OpenLedger, have a rule engine on the contract, write what are the set of data sets they want. The entire globe can go ahead and participate, contribute data sets to these contracts or these models. And as they collect data sets, these data sets can be used to train AI models. And as these models gets trained, as these model gets built, you can go ahead and have these models deployed on OpenLedger. Apps, agents can pay for these model, access these models, and when these model gets paid, the revenue is shared to the data contributor. So we provide rails, contract rails for you to go ahead and determine that how much you want to share revenue with, and you can share with the data contributors. Better revenue share, better clarity you give on your model, more the data contributor gets to know, and more incentivized he is to contribute more and more data sets. It's like how YouTube is, right? For example, you are a content creator, you go ahead and contribute content to YouTube, knowing that you will get paid, right? Knowing that more views you get, more impact you make, you're going to get paid more. Very similarly, we want to do that for the data economy. We want to create a data gig economy where anyone can come contribute data set. It could be an individual or it could be a firm, a smaller firm or an enterprise. They could contribute data sets knowing that it can be incentivized, knowing that they can monetize it. And model developers can use that, build the models, use that knowledge. And then as they get revenue, they can share that back to the data contributor. And that's the the infra that we're building for this to happen. Once this happens, then we would build in other infrastructure to make this model much better and much more optimized.
What's the current way that companies building models can access specialized data?
So right now it's very fragmented, right? If you take a look at if someone wants to build a model, there are players like Hugging Face which provide data sets, like Kaggle also does. But apart from that, it's very fragmented. You're not able to get go to a common place where you can get large chunks of data, and there is no single platform that kind of like acts as a marketplace for people to contribute and get paid for it. And one of the major reasons why is because larger language models have been in the space over the last 3 years now. People are just getting to be aware of that. AI is pretty much just controlled by like 4 5 larger organizations. Now we start to see smaller startups building AI systems. As it becomes much more bigger, we would have demand for it and that will grow. We've started to see that over the last 1 year. We've started to see that. If you take a look at 1 2 years back, we've seen enterprises do under the table deals with all these larger language model companies and sell data to them at just one off, and they never get benefited, even though they other companies like the model companies make billions of dollars. The companies that sold data to them probably made hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Now they're very aware. They see the potential of that, and they would want a platform on which they could monetize it on a constant manner. And there is a demand for this. We've seen this happen. That's one of the reasons we started building this itself, right? So as of now, it's fragmented. We want to be one of the players where we can streamline this and create sort of like a platform on which you can contribute data and get paid for it.
You mentioned a bit about the kind of economic model around data and buying data. For an example, like your Spanish language data set, you mentioned that other data sets, I'm not sure if they're similar or not, maybe command a couple $100,000 in the AI space. Is there enough meat on the bone for contributors to be fairly contributed to the data set, or is it a couple cents, a couple dollars, tens of dollars more per contributor?
Yeah, so it'll come down to like how big AI adoption is. So, for example, if you take a look at what I guess and what we all envision is that most of the apps that we see today will be replaced by AI, right? The
Mm-hmm.
apps will still be there, but the back end of an app, it'll not be an application logic. It'll be an AI model. Like we're starting to see that happen with like Google search, right? For example, Google search is predominantly getting into more AI enabled, and we've seen this because Perplexity was doing this, right? They wanted to compete against Google, they still do. And Perplexity was an app where the search was then interfaced before by a model. You ask the question to model, and then the search happens, and then the model infers that and gives an answer, right? And Perplexity not only uses like one single model, it uses multiple models. A math model to give you an answer around math. If you ask a question about healthcare, it'll use a model that's trained on healthcare. So an app where let's say we use for fitness, would not just use an application logic anymore. They would start to use like a sleep model, give you insights more about your sleep. They would use more of a exercise-based fitness model to give you answers around your exercises, how you're doing it, how you're performing, and stuff like that. So a fitness model would change. A model for e-commerce would change. It will be run by a model. It will just be an app by e-commerce would be like basically a model that's going to suggest you what to buy, right, based on what's your need. So all of the apps that we interact with today will be run by models behind. And when there is a need for models and all that grows, then there is a need for data. And then there is a demand for data. That's where your data is useful, and you get paid for it more. I'm sure that for the next 3 to 5 years, we would see the need for data to go much more bigger because we've consumed all of internet data. What we need now is very specialized data, right? A lot of people have spoken about this. Companies like Scale and many folks have spoken about how specialized data sets are important. That's the frontier data that we want, right? But collecting that is pretty difficult. Not everyone can go ahead and collect a specialized data set. You can't just bring in doctors to contribute healthcare data set, right? That's where we want to go much more broader. We want to provide like an infrastructure and let people decide what can be collected and how it can be collected, and use our platform to reward them, to use our platform to make this mechanism happen, right? And we've started to already see that we have people who are building a solidity model on us where they're collecting solidity based data sets. We have a team which is building like a sleep model, right? It's a bunch of doctors who are collecting sleep-based data sets and building a model around that. We have a team which is the next Google DeepMind team, which is just building a verticalized internet model. It's collecting internet-based data sets, but much more deeper, verticalized information on a particular subject. So like this, we found people are figuring out needs for data sets, and they used our platform to collect it and build models out of that. So the idea is to build a coordinating mechanism, a platform where data collection, model development, and rewarding happen seamlessly. You provide them with all the tools, and then people would use that and come up with innovative ideas. There's definitely demand for it. Definitely, there is going to be much more demand as we start to see coming years. But there is no platform to provide solutions for that, and that's what we want to build.
Recently, we saw kind of a bit of a disruption when DeepSeek launched and ended up being one of the higher performing, or I think the highest performing model. And I think the reason that was so disruptive was because they weren't as dependent on data as other models. Is that the case? And if so, why is specialized data still valuable now that we've shifted a little bit, or the space has generally shifted a little bit away from data being the biggest moat?
So that's not exactly right. Like, for example, DeepSeek was good because they basically trained on synthetic data from other models, right? So they needed data. They just took it from another model. They didn't collect it as a raw data. So without another model, without them feeding on from another model, they wouldn't have built DeepSeek. So data is definitely important. It's very logical, and that's what really happens in a model, right? You provide knowledge and data sets, and that's what makes the model to be much better than what it is today. It cannot innate have information. Where does energy come from? Energy has to be generated from somewhere, right? So data is very important for a model. On the other side, on the specialized model side, we're not saying that larger language models need specialized models, right? Specialized data sets. Like large language models are going to continue to have very generic information. You can't like feed more and more data there. It's going to become much more huge, and it's not needed at all. A large language model does not need to know everything that happens in the world. So what we believe is that large language models are there to give context for us to interact, for us to just have a general knowledge of the world. But specialized models are needed for us to do very specific tasks. Like a Google search is there. You search on Google, but if you want to find about a person's profession and you want to know what work he does, you go to LinkedIn and you search on LinkedIn. If you want to know about a food in a particular zone, like you want to go to Uber Eats and probably search there. We want to learn about, let's say, where the places to go around and see, you go to TripAdvisor, right? We've always gone for searches and platforms which are very unique for us, for our needs, and very specific, right? So that's going to happen with models as well. Models are not just going to be general. They're not be like one single model. there will be one single model, but multiple smaller specialized models will be there so that we can have much more specialized needs solved as well. That is our mode, right? Our mode is not to compete with larger language models. I think it just doesn't make sense. They've raised billions and billions of dollars and they have all the capacity in the world to build the best models out there. You can't compete that being a decentralized company. What you can do is that how you can create a disruption in the AI space, how you can make AI to reach to every parts of the world, how you can have even a common man access AI is to enable other parts of AI where there is a need for models to be specialized, models to be niche, model to be much more smaller and to for a particular category. We can enable that using decentralization. You can enable that to happen in a much more decentralized and a much more cheaper way. So that is what we want to do.
So the only way your data sets would be interacting with generalist models would be via other more specialized models that the generalized model is kind of pulling from, and your clients would be the most specialized models.
Yeah, our clients is more the ones who are trying to build like specialized models, models which are unique to a particular category. And we would build that on top of a general model, right? A general model is what we use. We enable our users to use and let them customize it to their own needs. So a Llama model was trained on Solidity dataset by one of the team that is building on us to build a Solidity model. So there is definitely need for the context from the larger language model, but we make it specialized using specialized data sets.
There's been a bit of debate in the AI industry about where in the stack value will be captured. Why did you guys choose to approach this layer of the stack, and why do you think that this will be a valuable place to build on in the future?
Yeah, so because I think like the compute problem has been pretty much solved. We don't need much compute for training. We would see need for compute more on the inference side because there'll be less and less training as we go. Even if there's training, there will be like post training, like what we do, right? More on fine tuning side. And the next biggest problem was data and models. Not many people are working on it. We saw there is an opportunity, and we come from a background of working in the crypto and machine learning space over the last 7 to 8 years. To just give a background, and we've worked with larger ecosystems like Walmart. We've worked with Sony and brands like Cadbury's and stuff. What we kind of understood is that data is massive. There's a lot of data available with all of these enterprises, but they're very, very much underrated. They're not being used at all, right? So, how can we build a better system for them to use this data to build better intelligence, better AI tools that can help them? That's how this was started. So, we saw there is a need for this on the community side for enabling developers, machine learning developers to build AI models which are specialized and unique, and they had a need to collect data. So we want to build a platform where they can collect data. On the other side, we also saw that enterprises have a lot of their own data sets and they would love to build models. And we wanted to provide them a platform to build these models. There are like 100 other fine tuning companies that provide the same. But what we wanted to provide as a unique solution is how we can do attribution, how we can explain these model much better, right? So that is one of the most unique things about OpenLedger. When you build an AI model on a platform, you can figure out which data is causing your model to give an output, right? Let's say you ask a question to your model that you built on OpenLedger. Once you start to talk to this model, once you start to infer on this model, on every inference, we figure out which data is causing that inference to happen. Which of the data set that you used had the biggest impact on that inference to come? How did the model process and then show you that inference? So we show that on chain. We attribute that. We figure out on every inference which data is causing that, and we put it on chain, we attribute it on chain, and then we enable this model to be much more explainable. On the community side, we use that to reward people. So people who are contributing data, the biggest impact ones get rewarded most. On the enterprise side, the enterprises know which data is causing an output for them. So when they decide and make decisions on an AI, when they come back later on, if something goes wrong, it's entirely auditable. You know which data was poisonous to cause a bad decision, or or which data was good enough to cause very good decisions. They want to collect more of that data, right? So making the models very explainable was important for enterprises, and that's one of the reasons we work with a lot of enterprises, and we're building like models for them. So these are the two sides of OpenLedger, and how we approach this, and that's one of the reasons we started with this. We saw there is a need for this, there's a demand for this, and it's an interesting problem to solve. So that's why I did this.
Yeah. Your token launches coming up soon. I'm curious about how your token fits into the OpenLedger model and what your plans are for the token in the future.
So when we initially spoke about this, right, I had mentioned about how we want to build like a gig economy, and one of the most important aspect of any gig economy is that you can manage the economics of your platform, right? How we can provide a token and have it beneficial for a community. Uh, Rewarding people is the centerpiece, and our token is the centerpiece of that. We want to enable developers to use our token to reward users, and also have them utilize for governance, right? So a token will decide, the ownership of the tokens will decide you to vote on the models that is being built. The models that get the most vote and support from the community is the one that will gets built. We don't want people to just randomly come and launch thousands of models, right? How these agent platforms where anyone could launch any agent. We don't want to do that. We want to have it much more curated, enable the community to decide what kind of models need to be built, what kind of models needs to go to the next stage for them to contribute data, for them to get paid for it. So that we wanted to give it to the community. So for governance to happen, you need to have a token that can enable people to get ownership of and govern on that. So that's one of the two reasons why we want to make sure that we have a token that can represent that. So we're going mainnet soon, and probably TG along with that. So we're working on that. Probably a couple of months we'll be out.
So the idea is kind of to create an entire economy, as if the token represented both ownership in OpenLedger, but also a currency on which developers and users can be rewarded.
I would say more on the governance side on OpenLedger to govern what's happening and be a part of the community, and yes, on and getting paid and as part of the gig economy.
Phenomenal. What's your grandest ambition for OpenLedger? What's the biggest possible thing that you could do someday and step back and say, wow, we really did
Yeah.
that?
So I think there would be hundreds and thousands of models that will be created by people across the globe in every part of the world. Very niche subjects, and very interesting value that can be created. If we can enable every developer to get access to data at much more lower cost and build AI models at larger scale, we would say that to be like the biggest achievement. And the scale to that is very arbitrary, right? Like for example, if you take a look at a platform like Hugging Face, 3 years back they maybe had like 1,000 models on them. Today they have more than 100,000 models. Tomorrow that could be much more bigger. So to reach an existing Web2 platform like Hugging Face or much more bigger than that is a testament to what can be done with decentralization. That's something that we would love to see happen, and hopefully that happens soon as well.
Ram, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, man. It was nice talking to you, and very refreshing and interesting questions. And I'm glad to be part of this one.
One last thing, where can people go to OpenLedger to find out more information or
Yeah,
contribute?
you can find us on Twitter, like on X. It's at OpenLedger HQ. So you can follow us. That's where we update often, and you can DM us as well. Our DMs are open.
Phenomenal. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It was nice talking to you.